Welcome. Here we are bridging the gap between the young and seasoned, faithful and faithless, single and married, to the Fortune 500 CEO and even unemployed. Through our own experiences, conversations, and collaborations, we hope to initiate and cultivate camaraderie through this journey called life. So join us. All right, everybody, welcome to our first official ever podcast called Bridging the Gap with
Sheila
and Kayla. We are most excited because this is something that's been on our heart for a while, and we're finally bringing it to fruition because I don't have enough to do in my life. There we go. And she was pretty busy herself, but we said, hey, why not add one more thing? But honestly, this is not just one more thing. This is something that we feel basically we wanted to have a podcast because we wanted to share our conversations with the masses, you guys. We'll go into how the inception of the podcast, Bridging the Gap, the name, but basically, I want you guys to get to know a little bit more about Sheila and get to know a little bit more about myself, because it won't make sense without you kind of knowing who we are as individuals. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sheila. All these podcasts are unscripted, you guys. These are total what God has laid on our heart, what we're pursuing in our life, you guys. And again, we'll go into the purpose of this podcast and why we wanted to make these conversations public to the masses. But first, Sheila, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you, obviously, but if somebody's listening in, they can't see you, they don't know you, who is Sheila?
I am 63 years old. I have 3 children. I've been married 3 times. I'm now newlywed. We've been married almost 3 years now. Kayla and I attend the same church. That's how we met. I've made a lot of mistakes in life, and I've occasionally made some wise choices. And I found with Kayla, when we talk about these things, it comes up, and we have a lot of humor. There's a lot of quick humor with us, and it's just sometimes we'll just be laughing and we'll say, "Hey, the world needs to hear this," and I believe she's right. Tell us about you, Kayla.
All right, here we go. Awesome, and I love that, and that really is how we kind of how this kind of came about, coming about, Inception. But a little bit about myself. My name is Kayla Crum, and I am a worship pastor for Radiant Church, but I'm also a full-time entrepreneur in the health and wellness sector. So is Sheila. And so really, yeah, we met at Radiant. When her and Phil came into service, I had just moved to Chattanooga, just come on with Radiant Church to kind of help out in the music department. And basically, we didn't know each other at first. And I don't know, what were your initial thoughts? Like before we're going to get real unscripted here, you guys, okay?
Okay, so. I had gotten really close to the lady that was singing before Kayla came in. So to be perfectly honest, my first thoughts were, who is this young little whippersnapper? She's going to come in here and take some singing time away from my buddy. That was my initial thought. And then I realized that wasn't Jesus. Those thoughts did not come from Jesus. And so I immediately cast those thoughts aside. But that was my first thought, because Kayla she's a beautiful girl. She's talented. She can sing. She plays musical instruments. And I guess a little bit I was kind of taken back by, here's this girl coming in here going to take over. But that was momentarily, because we got to know each other, and I realized her heart is not at all like that. That was just some of my insecurities showing.
Yeah, and it's, I know we all have our first impressions of people and how we can give off to other people. I really didn't, again, like Sheila said, I was just coming in, kind of starting out with the program and at church, and on Sunday mornings they're such a blur to me sometimes because I'm in just, music director mode, but I didn't know too much about Phil and Sheila specifically, but I knew that I saw her going around and praying for everybody, you know, and praying around the church. At that time, we were in the theater, and I was like, well, who is this woman, you know? And when we had met, like, she just had the sweetest spirit, and I remember, I was a little harder to open up to than most people, you know, like, she really did a good job at trying to pursue, you know, like, Sheila does a good job at kind of seeing you kind of before you let yourself be seen by other people, if that makes sense. So, you know, long story short, we had no idea this would kind of grow into the relationship it did until we took a trip to Pigeon Forge. we went on vacation to Pigeon Forge randomly.
We forgot to tell them, I don't think you mentioned how old you are, because
I
there's a
didn't.
few years difference.
That's right. That makes a difference in this podcast. Just a few years, you guys. So I'm 28 years old. But that doesn't matter, you guys. That's one thing that we think is going to make a huge just impression in this podcast, bridging the gap. That's part of how we came with the title, you guys, because you know, Sheila's age and my age may bring this huge disparity in age, you know, in the world, and people may think, well, they have nothing in common, you know, Sheila doesn't understand where I'm at this point in life. And I think sometimes when we're younger, we forget that, Sheila, you went through 28 to get to 60 something, you know, like, you know more than people would give credit. But then also, like, for me, I think there's so much wisdom to be gained, and I forget that. Sometimes I forget Sheila's in her 60s, honestly. It's almost like we're like these teenage friends, honestly, like, and it's so funny. But that's a big reason why we wanted to bring this to the masses, because a lot of our conversations, number one, they're always centered in God. You know, we crack up and we're human, you guys, just like everybody out there. But also we, you know, through doing life together, through doing business together, pursuing health together, you guys, doing ministry together, leadership roles, we've noticed that there's a lot of commonality within the different generations that we wanted to bring to everybody who may be in the same position or maybe could benefit from, you know, the thought process of Sheila or the thought process of myself, but also help navigate. You know, there's been many things that Sheila and I have talked about that have helped me navigate in life, that you would think somebody in the older generation, you know, it would help them, but it's helped me, and vice versa with Sheila. You would think that because of my young age, I don't know anything. There have been many things that I've been able to go through and navigate that have helped Sheila.
Yes.
And so that's really the point of this, why we wanted to bring this this podcast out to the masses and the public. If there's anything we can do, and we really felt God calling us to it, honestly. So do you want to say?
Yes, I wanted to say something else about you. We were talking about the age difference, 28 and 63. I admire Kayla, and I look at her, and yes, I went through 28, but she is so mature. And I often say to her, Kayla, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And I do. I see so many things in her that I want to cultivate in myself. And I do see her like a daughter. I love her. I love her with all my heart. And we both love the Lord, and we're just having fun. But I may be older in age, but in many ways, she has wisdom that I'm learning from. And I think the fact that both of us will take the time to step back and say, hey, yeah, we're different. She's a baby boomer, but hey, she has a perspective. And I know that the Lord tells us to love one another. And I think that's something that Kayla and I truly do. And that's cultivated this relationship and made it into something that I think is really unique. And we want to share that.
Yeah, I love it. I love the way you put that. You know, for me, there's no barriers, you know, just like in so many times people say, well, I don't see color, I don't see race, I don't see age. Well, with us, I don't see age. I don't see, well, you can't do this, you know, you can't go skiing. We go to Pigeon Forge. Although there are some barriers we have to be realistic about. But, you know, like at the end of the day, it is really just, I'm excited about the amount of people we've been able to impact just through our relationship together and bringing other people into the community through various means. But that brings us to, what do we address? What are some topics we're going to bring about on this podcast? Well, you guys, doing life, bridging the gap, leaves nothing off limits, So basically, we want to talk about life, faith,
Yes.
our careers, relationships, yeah, as uncomfortable as that may be for me. Nitty gritty perspectives, things we've walked through a lot of times. I wish we could just go back and magically have conversations we've already had recorded, you guys, because we've been talking about this for such a long time. But hopefully the Lord will bring some of those things back to our mind and remembrance. But yeah, everything, nothing's off limits. And you guys, we may have some podcasts, where we take, if you guys have questions or you have topics we want to talk about, we'll bring it in and we'll talk about. I think that'll be fun from our perspective. So, anything else you can think about, topics or that we'd address, or
I would like to say something about our relationship. Right
ahead,
now, I had 3 children. I have a daughter that at this point in time has chosen not to have me be a part of her life. And Kayla has so opened up her heart and given me an opportunity to learn how to be even better mother. You love your children. You love them. It doesn't matter how old they are. And when you've got love to give, and I do have, and I saw in Kayla kind of holding back, but I never will forget one day I walked up to her and I did just like I would have done to my own daughter. And her hair is beautiful like my daughter's. Kayla's beautiful. And I touched her hair and I just told her how beautiful she was and hugged her. Now, Kayla's not a hugger. I'll latch on like Velcro, but Kayla's not a big hugger. But we've gotten over that too, and we just laugh at it. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I really would welcome some things that people would like for us to talk about, because I'm not your typical older person. I'm open to talk about whatever. I didn't mention that I'm a nurse and that I also taught nursing. So I have a little bit of education. Now, Kayla's the one that's got all the initials after her name.
No. She's educated. She'll educate you. And she taught mental health and psychology. So watch out. She'll put some psychology on you. She's low key. I'm about to brag on her real quick. She's low key. So it's so funny too, because even geographically, we come from such different places. So I come from, born and raised in Florida, and grew up around so many different cultures. And, that was just so normal to me. And we didn't have accents growing up. I didn't hear any country accents, and I never heard terms like Banny Rooster and what's the other one? Belly Up, and just different things like that. And so, but I love that about Sheila, and I love that about that part of her culture, which I know sometimes, the devil can get in her head and say, well, that makes you, like illiterate and all that stuff. But it doesn't. Like, it makes you so unique where you come from and your culture and all of this, to say that, even geographically, we just come from very different walks of life. But it's somehow, I love how the Lord he knits things together in their perfect timing. Yes. And, Sheila was talking about her daughter. I lost my mom when I was a senior in high school. And so there's also that interesting aspect to our relationship, which I never had really thought about. But, it's just the Lord truly, his timing is perfect in relationships, and he knows our needs before we know our needs. Honestly, he just wants us to open up. And also, one thing you said was that, you're very open, and Sheila and I have had conversations, which I think have also opened the door for other things that we would have never had guessed that we'd had conversations about, like, I would have never had guessed, like, gas, Sheila, you went through this, like, this happened, or you struggled with this. And I think that's one thing that's missing a lot of times, just in relationships and just in generations, that people, they're afraid to talk about certain things because of perception of another individual. when I think that, number one, I think if your relationship is built on God, you know, just true relationship with him, we're called to be nothing but vulnerable to him. Well, he knows us anyways. We don't have a choice to be vulnerable. It's more like being honest with ourselves at that point. And so when we're honest with ourselves, then we can open up more in relationships and be honest with them, but also feel like we weren't alone in going through things. Or, okay, you know, this has been a struggle. This is a struggle. We see, you know, within the masses, maybe people are struggling with this, that they have no one to talk to, no one to relate to, and no one to communicate to. And so all that to say that open communication is so important, and that's something that has come with time, just naturally in our relationship for that. So do you have anything else for?
I think just to kind of add a little bit to what you said, I think a lot of churches now in this day and time, people will go into church and they will look around and think everybody else is perfect. Everybody's thinking everybody else is perfect. Nobody's sinned, and nobody's dealing with things, have ever dealt with things. And I think we've got to put that aside, because that's not the truth. And the truth is, we all have things. We've all been through things. They might be my dysfunction might look different than your dysfunction, but we've all had some sort of dysfunction in our life. And the only way to be truly close and to truly love, like God says, for us to love one another, is to know one another. You can't love what you don't know. And you just take down the mask and say, this is who I am. You know, within reason. You've got to. It took 3 years for you to open up totally to me, but you know that's okay. Ever how long it takes and whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, that's truly walking in love.
Yeah, that's so true. This is who I am, and also without the fear of guilt or judgment.
Yes.
You know, I know so many of us we've navigated relationships in our life where we have opened up and we have been hurt, we have been judged, we have felt guilty. And I think all of us, everyone to a certain extent, have to go through situations like that, relationships. But also that there's hope for healthy relationships. There's hope. There's just hope to overcome. And the only way you can do that is just to be real with yourself and real and honest, you know. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the topics we're going to talk about. I'm excited about the different responses from people that have helped them, that have blessed them, because we feel like this is a true ministry, honestly. You know, life without relationships, I think, is a pretty depressing life. And just like in love, you have to take a chance. You have to take a chance on people. And I think doing life together may hurt sometimes, but it's easier than doing life by yourself, you know, just... and if there's any hope we can bring to anybody, then we're pretty excited about that. So... yeah.
And also with this life, there will be times that it'll be a little uncomfortable. That's part of being vulnerable and opening up and giving your opinion. And sometimes our opinions won't match, and that's okay.
Yeah, we agree to disagree. I mean, I mean, it's okay to do that, you guys. You know, like we don't. There have been things we haven't 100% agreed on, but we navigate through them. We agree to disagree, and if we can show you that through our example, through our relationship, then great. We hope that you can apply those things to your relationships and such like that.
And being open to, I know with you, I've had to be open to, well, just maybe she's right. You know, it doesn't have to be, no, I'm right. I'm standing here and I'm right. It's like, well, this is my opinion. Let me listen to yours. Well, let me think and pray on that. So, you know, you've got to be open. You've got to be teachable. I don't care how old you are. You've got to be teachable. Yeah. And learn and move forward and grow, because if we're not growing, we're dying. Yeah.
You brought one more thing that I didn't think about to talk about in our relationship, was that we both like to ask, you know, the deep questions in life, which I love about our relationship, because I love when I, you know, can get a relationship with somebody who just asks those deep questions, those tough questions, you know, like, what is life? Why are we living? Why are we here? You know, like different questions about the Bible, and we don't have all the answers, but also, why have I struggled with this? Why do I feel this way? Or, you know, why is a generation going through this? And it's so funny, because Sheila and I will literally text all throughout the week, just if we have a thought, and we'll run it through, and then we'll kind of just eat on that thought for the rest of the week. And then there've been some times where she'll have a thought in her head, and maybe it pops up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and she'll text me, and I'm like, she's like, so what do you think? And she's chewing on. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. And I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out where you're coming from.
And I love that honesty. And it's like, okay, I'll go sleep on that and we'll talk about it later.
And then there'll be sometimes I'll go back and reread it and be like, oh, that was so simple. This is what she was talking about, And then vice versa. There'll be times where you're like, well, or she'll tell me something I don't want to hear, It'll sting, but because I respect her and we have that open relationship for it. So, yeah. And so that is what Bridging the Gap is about, you guys. We're super excited. One thing that we don't struggle with is conversation between us. So we're like, hey, let's just record it and put it on the masses. We have this ping pong match, which we love because it serves a purpose. So I don't have anything else. Are you excited about
I'm excited.
Our next episode, for sure. So we will be doing one episode a week, you guys. And again, we'll be taking topics or suggestions eventually as we get our footing. So yeah, we hope you have enjoyed our first podcast. And we will be praying fervently, that the Lord will use us first and foremost, because that is the reason why we do anything and everything in this life, you guys. And we'll be talking about different topics. So, all right. Well, have a good week, you guys. Talk to you later.
See you later.
This is a personal podcast. If you enjoyed our talk today, we would love to hear from you and pray you share this with someone who can benefit the most. Any views or opinions represented are individual and belong solely to the participants. The content presented is not to diagnose, cure, or heal any illnesses.